We got a couple of questions from Twitter, if I could just ask you these. So
Sure.
first one is from James, and he asks, I would like to know your experience in learning Chinese compared to Arabic.
Well, of course, I learned Chinese over 50 years ago. And
Oh, really?
There were no MP3 players. I had an open reel tape recorder. It didn't
Right.
go anywhere. It sat in my room, and I sat in front of it and I listened to it. Eventually, they got to the cassette player, and of course, the cassettes would always unravel. And so everything has just become much easier today. You can find.
Right.
I had to scour the bookstores. I learned Chinese or Mandarin in Hong Kong, which is a Cantonese-speaking place. Now
Yes.
people there speak Mandarin. In 50 years ago, no one spoke Mandarin. But I
Right.
spent a lot of time at bookstores, scouring bookstores to find material where you could get, whatever content with glossaries, so you didn't have to look stuff up in a dictionary, because it takes a long time to look up words in a Chinese dictionary, and anytime you look anything up in a dictionary, you forget it right away. So that things have become so much easier. You can find so much material on the internet. Here I am. I get a podcast from Al Jazeera. I send the MP3 file to a lady in Jordan. She types it out for me. I get it back. I study it on Link, looking up words, saving words. I've got it on my iPhone. I go jogging. I go to the gym. I'm in the car. I listen to it. I mean, the whole environment has become so much more conducive to, I follow the news in Arabic. That would have been inconceivable 50 years ago. Insofar as the difficulty, as difficult as Arabic letters are, they're not as difficult as Chinese characters. Because,
Right, sure.
I mean, there's 4 forms of each Arabic letter, but there's only 20 odd of them. Can't remember how many. Whereas in Chinese, I had to learn, 3,000-4,000 characters, and some of them have, 10, 12, 15 strokes. I mean, it's just the writing system. The grammar in Arabic is more complicated. There's no grammar to speak of in Chinese. You can't get too many things wrong. It's not like Russian or Slavic languages, nor for that matter. Arabic is not too bad. They have some things. I stay away from some of the more difficult concepts, but the tenses aren't a real problem, and you get used to the gender thing and to, of, and whatever, the endings. And I think Arabic is easier than Chinese. That's the simple answer. If you take the total picture, it's easy.
I would.
But it has its own difficulties.
I mean, I go about as far as ni hao, or whatever the tones are for that. So I mean, I've spent some time in China. I spent about a month there teaching, and I've spent a lot of time in Hong Kong. But I would agree with you. It's never been easier to learn a language, and that's the point. In fact, you could take that a step further and say it's never been easier to learn anything. We live in a world now where you can learn anything thanks to literally this platform, YouTube. You can learn whatever you want, and learning Mandarin Chinese in Hong Kong. What in the 70s was it or something?
No. It's 68, 69.
In the 60s. Well, so there you go. Is just so like worlds apart from where we are today.
But the principle is the same to me. Listening and reading. You have to get the language in you. You have to get the language in you, and the brain will learn. But the brain requires a lot of stimulus, and then it'll start to sort things out. And once I have that's how I look at my Arabic grammar. I kind of have a sense of how the language works vaguely. I've read a bit of some explanation of grammar. But once I'm better in the language and I have more words, then I will go back in and improve my grammar. Right now, I'm quite prepared to just let it go. I can understand. What prevents me from understanding is not the grammar, it's my lack of words. So I just need more words, so I understand more and I can listen to more. And, we had a conversation in Arabic. I wasn't brilliant. If I continue listening and I have more words, in another 6 months, I'll be able to talk about more things. And I'll still make mistakes. But to me, learning Arabic is not a question of how fast can I do it. I expect it to be something that'll be with me for a long, long time. So I'm not in no great hurry.
Yeah, no, that's I've seen your videos, and you share your lessons which you have online with native speakers. And I love the way that you're not, you don't hesitate to just get stuck in. You're not afraid to make mistakes and just start talking right from the offset.
I don't start from the outset. Outset, I'll give myself 3 months. I want to have a lot of it come in me before I try to output anything. But
I think some people, myself included, are almost hesitant to say anything that they're not 100% sure is totally grammatically correct. So that limits you to basically just only saying a few, a very, very small amount. But then you don't get the feel of the language. You don't get to learn so quickly. Good. Okay, so that was the first question from James. We got another question from Sen Ben. Sen Ben asks, can you ask Steve whether learning Turkish and Arabic at the same time makes things easy or hard? Because and this person, Sen Ben, says they have shared chunks of common words. So what do you think about that?
So I decided that I would learn 3 languages at the same time: Arabic, Persian, and Turkish.
And Turkish, yes.
Yes. Now I've put Turkish on the back burner for now because the problem with that is there's too many. Like I've only got an hour and a half a day to spend. And so if I break that now up amongst 3 languages, then that's less time on any one of those 3 languages. The advantage and the reason why I decided to go after 3 was that initially I went 3 months on one, 3 months on the other. Then it was 6 months before I came back to the first one again, and I slipped too much. So I said I'll do them all at the same time. But it's too difficult to do them all at the same time. So now I'm doing Persian and Arabic. But there's no question that the common vocabulary in all 3 languages, which is 10, 15%, I don't know what the number is. Obviously, it's easier to remember a word that you've already come across somewhere else. That somewhere else might be in the same language or it might be in another language. They're not related languages. They're very different languages, but they share, as I say, all this vocabulary. So definitely it helps. Yes. Definitely it helps for all 3 of them. Yeah.
And you don't find yourself getting confused thinking, oh, was that a Turkish word or an Arabic word? Or, I mean, how do you separate those in your brain, or is it something you do consciously or not?
Yeah, to some extent. It's not that it's sometimes the brain just goes off in the wrong direction. You're searching for a word and it grabs a Persian word instead of an Arabic word. Yeah. But I don't do that an awful lot. Once you get going, like we started up, I was struggling a bit, and after a while, when we spoke, I get into my Arabic, and so Arabic words show up. And I'm confident that if I were to go to an Arabic-speaking country, granted they don't speak Fusha on the ground, they speak something else, but that less and less interference the more you use it. And when you first start in, if I, for example, were now to go and speak Persian, then there'd be a lot of Arabic interference. But after half an hour or so, that would disappear.
Sure.
By and large. And I found that for other languages, either related languages like Portuguese and Spanish, or languages that are unrelated, like, say, Japanese and Russian. You struggle at first, and then eventually you get in a track, and you just stay there.
Wow. Well, it's certainly very, I find your YouTube channel very inspiring.
Thank you.
And I think one of the key struggles in learning a language can be the motivation. If you've got, a French-speaking girlfriend or, a German best friend, whatever, then you've got a good incentive there. You want to meet their family and you want to be able to talk, etc. If you're living in a country like I have lived in the Middle East, that's another great incentive. I want to understand what the school kids are like, when they're swearing and when they're, saying this and that. That's
where did you live, by the way, if I may ask?
So I worked in Kuwait. I was a teacher in Kuwait. And I've also taught in Dubai, the UAE as well. Okay. So both Gulf countries, very different to Morocco and North Africa, and Lebanon. But no, that's a great incentive as well. And I do find your channel, you're great for that. So I want to give you a chance to talk about your YouTube channel and your language learning platform Link. So the links for both those things will be in the description. Yeah. So please tell people where they can find you.
Link is okay. So first of all, I have a YouTube channel, Lingo Steve, where twice a week I talk in English, or mostly in English, sometimes in other languages, French or Chinese or whatever. And then every 2 weeks I speak in Japanese. And basically I just want to encourage people. And because I spend a lot of time, like it's a good hour and a half a day that I spend learning languages. So it's a big part of my life. And so I think of different things that relate to language learning, and I share these on my YouTube channel. Insofar as Link, it's something that my son Mark and I started about 15 years ago. I'm 74. I wrote a book. I wrote a book about 16, 17 years ago when I spoke 9 languages. And and it's after that we started Link. And since then I've learned 11. So age is not a limiting factor.
And I think that's amazing. That really is amazing. Sorry, carry on.
No, I don't speak them all equally well, but some of the ones that I learned after the age of 60, I speak not too badly. Like Portuguese, like Russian, even Ukrainian. I was in Ukraine. I was on television, prime time in Russian and Ukrainian. I did it fine. I spoke, with mistakes, but I had no trouble.
Fantastic.
So I don't consider making mistakes a big problem. We've all, as English speakers, we've had the experience of dealing with people who speak English as a second language, and they operate phenomenally well, and they make mistakes, and that's not an issue. Yeah. But Link then is a platform. We have 35 languages, and there's an enormous quantity of audio and text material there at different levels of difficulty. Largely contributed by our members, or we go out and create things like our mini stories where we have a lot of repetition of high frequency verbs. You need verbs to talk. Verbs are key. And so there's a lot of good content there, and there's a whole bunch of learning functionality, different highlighting on the screen when you're reading the text, reflecting how well you know a word, or if you don't know a word, bunch of statistics that motivate you, because when you're learning on your own, you sometimes have the impression you're not improving, even though you are. So it's just, there's nothing there that's amazing invention, but it's just a convenient place, at least for some people, including me, to focus our language learning activities, even though the main activity is listening. So if I spend an hour and a half a day, I'll spend an hour listening at the gym, doing the dishes, in the car, whatever it might be, and then another half hour on the iPad, saving words and reviewing words and reading and stuff like that. So it's sort of a convenient place where you can get all this content and this functionality transferred to or carry it on your cell phone, and so that you're constantly connected to your language. And that's basically Link, lingq.com.
Fantastic. When you're listening, this is just kind of my own personal interest, really.
Yes.
There's a big difference between passive listening and active listening. So when you say I'll do an hour of listening, will you be sat at a desk listening and writing down words that you hear and don't recognize? Or you just have it going in kind of...
Never. But if I have dedicated learning time, I read on Link and save words. Or reread something that I read before, where there's a bunch of what we call yellow links. These are words that I've looked up before, but I still don't know. If I have dedicated learning time, I read. If I were to sit down and try to listen and to focus, I think I would lose focus.
Okay.
I find that, and it depends what you're listening to. Like, I can listen to the mini stories because I've heard them so often, and I always kind of tune in and I notice something I hadn't noticed before. And then when you get to a certain level, now you can listen to interesting things. The latest podcast on Al Jazeera, the latest podcast on France 24, or the equivalent in Russian, or whatever it might be. So I can take those anywhere. So no, I don't do dedicated listening. Listening to me is
And
if I don't understand it, and inevitably there's lots that I don't understand, then I go and read it. And when I read it, then I find these words that I heard, like, what's that? And then you look it up, and you learn it, you forget it, you learn it, you forget it. But that's the process.
Right.
For me.
Got it.
Wow. Never listen and make notes. I never do that.
Interesting. Fantastic. Well, thanks so much, Steve, for coming on my channel.
No, I enjoyed it. Very kind of you to have me.
Well, yes, pleasure.
And I'm going to stay with my Arabic, so we can do this again sometime, and hopefully I'll
it sounds good.
Maybe by that time I might have some Egyptian or Levantine, Lebanese.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot that my viewers could learn from you, and I'm sure as you go through and continue, we'll have new things to talk about. So it'd be great to see you again. Okay. And if you are new, you can subscribe. But thanks, Steve, for coming.
Okay. Mike, great pleasure. Thank you very much. Ma salama.